Welcome to Herbally Yours, an adventure into the world of natural medicine. Here is your host, Dr. Kamhi, the natural nurse who will help you take the leap to ultimate wellness.
Greetings, and thank you for joining me, Kamhi, the natural nurse, for another edition of Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. Herbally Yours brings you the latest information about the many facets in the world of natural living. Today, my guest is Nurse Vanessa Peck. She is known as the Medical Cannabis Nurse for Kids and is a certified cannabis nurse with 12 years of professional nursing practice. With an extensive background in emergency care, trauma, and pediatrics, Vanessa was compelled to move forward in her career to help educate and guide families through the world of cannabis. Vanessa understands and empathizes with parents who feel at their wits' end because of failed therapies, enduring the most difficult experiences with their children, and watching their child suffer. Together, Vanessa and families walk hand in hand down the alternative road of medical cannabis, transforming and restoring their kids' life. And where you can find her, it is at Elevated Healing. There's a little space between the elevated and the healing. ElevatedHealing.com or Facebook, Elevated Healing, and Instagram, Elevated Bar Healing. Oh, 3 underscores. She told me what that was. So you can always also listen to the show again and get that information because it will be posted there on our show archive if you're listening to this show live today. So thank you so much for joining us today, Vanessa.
Thank you for having me, Ellen.
Now, let's go back in time a little bit and share with our audience, why did you become a nurse in the first place?
Yeah, nursing actually was a second career for me. And I was actually had a family member that was very ill at the time. And being in the intensive care unit and watching what these nurses were doing for my family member, it really just struck me in such a way that I felt like this is something that I needed to do. I always had a caring personality and always wanted to help people in some fashion, but I just never knew which direction to go. At that point, it was full steam ahead, and I started applying to some accelerated nursing programs because I had already had a bachelor's degree. And from there, it's been history.
Well, you shared with me when we were offline that you actually attended NYU.
Yes, I did. I did.
You know, many nurses consult with me and others who want a career in natural. And of course, that's something that you're doing with cannabis nursing. But I often recommend, if they can, to go to NYU because while it's deeply steeped in medicine and science, the theorists who developed that school, such as Martha Rogers, really did have a very expansive spiritual view of the interaction of nurses with their clients and patients.
They did indeed. That was definitely a great focus of the curriculum of that nursing program. Very holistically driven, and they really made sure that you really understood that as a nurse and you applied that to your practice.
And that's perfect for you.
Yes, it is.
From what you were looking for. So
yes, it is.
That was a really good choice. So thank you so much for being our guest today. How did you move from being a conventional nurse, and perhaps you're still doing conventional nursing as well, to building a company with the beautiful name Elevated Healing?
Yes, so about 2 to 3 years ago, working in the pediatric ER, I came across, I was taking care of an autistic child, and great family, great patient. When he was ill and we were taking care of him in the ER, Mom had pulled the ER doctor and I aside just for warning us that this went down the road that the patient had to be admitted, that it could be something that was a little bit of a catastrophic event for the child. So unfortunately, the child was admitted. And it ended up turning into an event that Mom described to us. The patient was pacing back and forth through the room, really upset, clenching his fists, really difficult to calm down. The ER doctor had pulled me aside and said, I'm going to order some IV Ativan, which is a sedative, just in case if he's not able to calm down with some time. And I let mom know this, and mom had said, let's keep that as an option. But I do have his CBD oil here, which tends to work very quickly, and it's very effective in calming him down in these types of situations. Let me just try to give it, if that's okay with you guys. And if it doesn't work in 20 minutes, then, let's go that route. So I let the ER physician know, and the ER physician was very accommodating and said, yeah, that's okay. Let mom give it. And mom gave it, and I went about, continuing my assignment and helping my other patients. And I gave it about 20, 25 minutes. And as I approached the patient's room, I was just astounded already before I even entered the room as to how quiet it was in comparison to 20 minutes prior to that when, he was having a bit of a meltdown. And when I walked in, I think mom could just see it all over my face that I was just astounded by what I was seeing. He was laying in bed, calm, talking to his parents, laughing, watching TV, like nothing had happened 20 minutes ago. And mom and I started getting into a conversation, and she had said, he's been on so many medications over the years, some of them working, some of them not. The ones that did work, tons of side effects, more medications for the side effects. She said, there were times that he was a zombie, and you could tell it was a very vicious cycle for them and a struggle. And mom started doing some research and heard some parents talking about CBD and decided to delve into that world of the CBD, learn everything she could. She got her hands on it and she tried it for him. And she said nothing has ever worked as well as CBD had for him. And over time, they actually weaned him off a lot of his medications. She swore by it. She was like, I don't care what anybody thinks about me in terms of using it. It's what works for us. It's given him a life that we've never seen him have or even imagined that he could have had. And she even mentioned that she was giving it to her mom with dementia, who is having more frequent episodes of sundowning, and was saying that her mom was responding very well to it as well. So that's where I was introduced to cannabis. And then I just kind of kept dabbling in the world of research and understanding it better. And then finally just wanted to come from a more natural perspective and helping patients, because conventional medicine has its place for sure. And I've seen it work in the ER when you need something conventionally at that time to help somebody. But to be able to approach it from a natural side and see the healing properties that some of these amazing plants can do for us is more the perspective I wanted to come from, and this was just my journey and the route that I wanted to go.
Well, thank you for sharing, and of course that's true about herbal medicine in general. In fact, I am really promoting the use of evidence-based natural therapeutics to be our standard of practice in conventional medicine, because they are so often, like you just shared, actually more effective. They have thousands of years of history of use. This is plants in general, and much safer and much more cost effective. So for those scientifically grounded reasons, it should be standard of practice. And then we could use a potentially stronger but more harmful pharmaceutical if necessary.
I completely agree. And that's the perspective I'm coming from as well. And I love the work that you're doing. That's amazing. So
also you integrated into your practice, and you just shared with me also, which I would say you can shout out on your bio, that you are a member of the American Cannabis Nurses Association.
Yes.
And what is a certified cannabis nurse, which you are?
Right. So a certified cannabis nurse is a nurse that is educated in everything cannabis in terms of what cannabis is, its constituents. It's not just about THC, which I think a lot of people tend to associate with cannabis is just THC, but there's also many other compounds like CBD, CBN, terpenes, CBG, a lot of things that people don't know, and understanding how that works with their body, and that works with something called the endocannabinoid system. And being specialized in this knowledge is very important, because people just think, oh, so you're just going to give my child or even adult, I'm just going to take THC and I'm just going to get high and that's why I feel better. But having this knowledge and being more of an expert in the field allows you to educate people as to why this plant works as well as it does with the body. And that's because this plant contains what we call phytocannabinoids, or these compounds within this plant are compounds that this system in our body creates. And sometimes if we're deficient or depleted of them, by nourishing our body, supplementing our body with this plant, this is why we see these astounding results. This is why people have these astounding effects. And that's what a certified cannabis nurse does. They're educated in this area. They're very knowledgeable. They're an expert in the field, and they're able to guide people and educate people as to what the appropriate information is, the evidence-based practice, the science that's behind it, to better understand and teach them what this is all about.
So what kind of training programs are available for someone to become a certified cannabis nurse?
Yeah, there are a few programs out there. There's a few cannabis nurses that own their own companies. I actually got certified through the Training Academy of Medicinal Cannabis with Lisa Hedden. She has a certification program. There's also many other, even the American Cannabis Nurses Network, they have a lot of webinars and informational videos that allow you to kind of go that route as well. They're still working on a certification. But there are a couple of companies that if you were to look them up, they do have some certification programs, but it's in the revolution of getting more certifications. It's not that easy just because of some of the stigma that's behind it. But as we're getting more and more science behind it, more people are certifying other healthcare professionals.
Right. Now, in the situation you were discussing, another thing, because I'm a mixer, I bring herbal medicine and homeopathy and nutrition and all kinds of lifestyle changes together in a therapeutic milieu. And going back to when I was a psych nurse on a heavy-duty psych ward, one of the other things I found working beautifully in the situation that you described earlier was rescue remedy. So having rescue remedy should be on every single emergency room cart, should be on every single psych ward, and it can even be used externally. And in the situation that you were describing with the young patient that was very agitated, I've seen that same response, like instantly relieving the situation from the point of where a big giant man that I'm thinking of, who was agitated in the psych ward, just sat down instead of the orderlies having to grab him and have a big drama and, take him down. All that. Right. Avoidable through natural procedures. Now, in terms of cannabis, we haven't discussed yet, but it's less, because in my two home states, both Florida and New York, medical cannabis is legal. And how is that different from the CBD that you're discussing here, Nurse Vanessa?
So as you stated, there are some states where the cannabis is legal and other ones that aren't. CBD, because it is being derived from the hemp plant, it is legal in all 50 states on a federal level. That's because it's being derived from the hemp plant, and that's actually protected by the 2018 Farm Bill that was passed. So deriving CBD from the hemp is a little bit different. And like I said, on a federal level, that's okay. And some states, actually, there are still a few states that even though it's okay on a federal level, they still don't allow for the selling or the marketing of CBD products. There are still a few states. Now, deriving CBD from a marijuana plant is a little bit different, and that's where we start running into some stipulations around it, only because now that CBD could contain some THC. But that THC is usually at a level that's not going to create that high that everybody, thinks about and associates with THC. It usually contains 0.3% or less than 0.3% of THC. So you're not going to get that high that people speak of, but you're still going to get the benefits of CBD. But in states where medical marijuana is legal, there's the sales of adult medical marijuana, where people can obtain a medical marijuana card, and depending on what condition is that you can use the medical marijuana for. It depends on states. Every state has different conditions that they use medical marijuana cards for. Then people can medicate with the medical marijuana. But in terms of CBD, it is a little bit different. It has a different type of profile. But it still can have great effects, whether it's pain, anxiety, sleep, from anything, spasms. There's so much that CBD and THC in combination or separately can really benefit people today.
It is, and it's confusing if people are listening. You're throwing around a lot of terms, but I do want to, explain also that, yes, if you're going to just go out and buy your own CBD oil, actually, if you want to choose an excellent brand that is very responsibly paying attention to legal issues, it should not say CBD on the front of the label. That is actually majorly important, because the best brands who are adhering to FDA regulations will say hemp on the front of the label, not CBD. And I'm involved in regulatory. I can't tell you how many people who have some excellent products, by the way, but it says CBD on the front of the label. They're now in court now with the FDA. So if you choose remedies that say hemp on the front of the label, then turning it around, and as Nurse Vanessa just really explained to us so beautifully, then what we're looking for is how much cannabidiols or cannabinoids. They will actually list it in the supplement facts box. And in terms of THC, that's an important point, because if it has THC, then it can be considered in the medical marijuana range. Then it might be sold through one of those dispensaries in the states that it's legal. Well, if it's something that you can just buy off the internet, it should never say CBD on the front of the label. So that's one differentiating point. And it's really just amazing how it works. Now, talk a little bit more about that endocannabinoid system, because I think a lot of people would be shocked to find out that we all have these receptors.
That's exactly. So, it's funny because here where the endocannabinoid system is being mentioned more and more now, but it's actually something that's taught very limitedly in medical schools. So there's zero.
Exactly.
There is. Exactly. So that's the thing there. Physicians are not even being taught about the endocannabinoid system. But it's a system that is the largest system in our bodies. It is responsible for all the chemical messaging with all our other systems. And essentially what it does is, the most important function is it creates this internal balance within our bodies and within all our systems. And when I say systems, our reproductive system, our cardiac system, our GI system, respiratory system, everything to be in balance. Now, there is a theory that if the endocannabinoid system is out of balance, maybe due to having a depletion of endocannabinoids, which is just a fancy word for these internal compounds that we make that work with this endocannabinoid system. If we're depleted of them, and even sometimes if they're overactive, we can find ourselves in a disease state. So this could be diabetes, high blood pressure. This could be autism. This could be ADD, ADHD. So there is a variety of illnesses that we're saying that when this endocannabinoid system is deficient and when it's not in balance, we're seeing these disease states create or develop. So, but there's also a theory too that is it the chicken before the egg? So is there a depletion first and we have these chronic illnesses develop, or is there the chronic illness and then it's depleting these endocannabinoids and, we're just in a continuous disease state. So by now supplementing this deficiency, with the phytocannabinoids from the cannabis plant, we're seeing these great outcomes where, for example, a child with autism who has behavioral issues and is having violent outbursts, hyperactivity, they have hypersensitivities to certain sensory issues. we're seeing that when parents are using these conventional medicines that are approved for autism, they're not working. They're becoming more aggressive. They're very lethargic. Now, when we supplement their bodies with a phytocannabinoid from the cannabis plant, whether that be CBD, CBG, CBN, even sometimes a level of THC for some in combination, we're seeing these great results where these kids become calm. Parents are seeing them smile. There's some progressive development where parents are hearing them say words that they've never said before, stringing a sentence together. These outcomes are amazing. And while there's a lot of anecdotal evidence, what a lot of people don't know is that there's a lot of scientific evidence behind this as well. There are studies out there that are showing that the cannabis plant and the endocannabinoid system work hand in hand, and they are creating these great outcomes for people.
Yeah. And, you just have to go to PubMed. So anybody can go to PubMed. These are not secret hidden studies.
No.
And some of them are in mainstream medical journals, and some of them are excellently high-level studies. Not all of them, which is true with any kind of study. And there are some outcomes that aren't as fantastic, but there's very little link to any negative side effect, and a very huge amount of studies showing positive effects. And I think that you've actually taken sort of that next step out there. And let me reintroduce the fact that you are listening today to Herbally Yours on the voice of Nassau Community College, 90.3 WHPC. And we're out of Nassau Community College. My guest today is Vanessa Peck, RN, and she is known as the Medical Cannabis Nurse for Kids. And to find out more, you can find her at elevated-healing.com. Because I think your specialty has gone even further out on a limb in terms of a nurse promoting the use of cannabinoids and CBD for children. That's a very focused specialty.
It is. I feel that there's a lot of focus on what we can do for the adult population out there. But there's a lot of children out there that can benefit from this as well. And I know there's a lot of stigma just around cannabis alone. Then you add pediatrics to it, and the complexity just becomes tenfold, and the stigma, becomes even stronger to try to overcome. But again, there are studies out there that are showing that there are protective benefits. And when parents want to not argue against it, but want to question it, and I want them to question everything. They need to. But at the end of the day, it's lack of education and it's misinformation. I feel that a lot of the information that people have in hand may not be the right information, or they're basing it on anecdotal evidence because somebody didn't have a good experience with it or it didn't work for them. Well, this isn't going to work for everyone. Just like there's plenty of conventional medicine out there that, patient A tries it and it doesn't work for them, but it works wonders for patient B. So it's the same thing, but to stress that this is a very safe and effective, viable option for parents out there, for children with autism, treatment-resistant epilepsy, ADD, ADHD, OCD, children with cancer, and parents want to either support their treatment or even just symptom management, and even a condition called PANDAS. This is very promising for a lot of people out there and a lot of children. And there's science behind it.
Yeah. And how about the fact, Nurse Vanessa, that there is actually a prescription that's called a pediatrics that is CBD, basically. As a matter of fact, it's 100 milligrams and was specifically developed for children and actually can be prescribed for children. Mm-hmm. The one thing, do you know if it's ever covered by health insurance? Because if not, it's much more expensive than just getting good quality CBD oil.
Oh, it's. I don't know how much of it is covered by insurance, but I do know it costs almost $40,000 a year for these parents to treat their children with these severe cases of epilepsy. I mean, where we have this natural derivative that's a lot less expensive and does the same exact thing.
Right, but they're actually selling it, which is amazing to me. they're selling cannabidiol isolate, which, by the way, does not have the best use curve. A much better use curve comes with the ones that do have the entourage effect of having a full complement of cannabidiols. Well, that isolate, of course, always pharmaceuticals are isolates. And then that can be, have a name and be registered with trademarks and all that. But it actually exists, which I think is a wonderful thing to show people about the fact that, hey, here it is as a drug. Same exact thing. Read the label.
Exactly.
Which is really, really wonderful. So in our last few minutes, tell us about your company, Elevated Healing, and how, you can reach out and work with people and help them.
Sure. So at Elevated Healing, we consult with parents who are looking for alternative treatments for their child who may have, like I said, autism, treatment-resistant epilepsy, behavioral issues, anxiety, depression, ADD, ADHD, cancer, any of those types of conditions, and they're looking for a more natural remedy or a natural treatment that they want to try because they've tried a lot of the conventional. These parents have been through the ringer in terms of helping decrease or resolve the symptoms that their child may be having and just trying to make them more comfortable. And with this, the world of cannabis can be really confusing. So I help educate parents what this is all about, why it works, and what the science is behind it. And I give them the best information possible so that they can make the best decision in terms of treating their child and their health and well-being. So we do a consultation, we figure out what's a good game plan, what's a good treatment plan. I explain that the world of cannabis is more of an art. There's not enough studies that have been done that say this dose and this chemovar, meaning strain, works for this patient because of this. So we kind of have to play with it. But these parents are very patient because they've already been through the ringer already, and they're used to trying things and things working and not working. And but really just helping them navigate through this world of cannabis. I'm even created a course for parents with children with autism that if they want to just learn about what all of this is, even as deep as the endocannabinoid system, just giving a brief overview so they can understand why it works, is my goal, is to help educate as many people as I can and help as many families as I can. So you can find me at www.elevated-healing.com if any parents were interested or wanted to reach out.
Thank you so much for being our guest today, Vanessa.
Thank you.
And thank you for tuning into Herbally Yours, produced in the studios of 90.3 WHPC. You can also catch us on iHeartRadio in Nassau Community College, Garden City, New York. For further information, email us at whpc@ncc.edu. This is your host, Ellen Kamhi at naturalnurse.com, inviting you to join us next week for another edition of Herbally Yours. Until then, stay healthy.